Jisoo pulled her jacket tighter as she walked through the busy spaceport market of New Seoul. At 15, she was tall for her age, with short black hair that had purple tips, a small act of rebellion her parents barely tolerated. The market buzzed with activity as humans and aliens traded goods from across the galaxy. "Hurry up," her friend Mina called from ahead. "The food stalls close soon." Jisoo jogged to catch up with Mina and their other friend, Jun, who was busy tapping on his wrist device. "Did you see the news?" Jun asked, pushing his glasses up his nose. "A Vexari diplomatic ship docked this morning. They hardly ever visit human colonies." The Vexari were one of the oldest species in the Galactic Alliance. Tall, with silvery skin and 4 arms, they were known for their elegant technology and stuck-up attitudes. Everyone knew they thought humans were barely civilized. "Who cares?" Mina shrugged. "They just float around in their fancy ships looking down on everyone." As they turned the corner toward the food court, Jisoo stopped suddenly. Ahead of them, a crowd had gathered around a landing pad where a ship sat gleaming in the afternoon sun. It wasn't very big, about the size of a small Earth yacht, but it drew attention because 6 Vexari stood proudly around it, their silver robes fluttering in the breeze. "That must be them," Jun whispered, eyes wide. "That's a Vexari personal vessel." Jisoo studied the ship with a critical eye. Her mother worked in spacecraft design, and Jisoo had grown up learning about engines and hull configurations. The ship before her looked oddly old-fashioned, with curves in all the wrong places and thrusters that seemed too small for its body. "It looks like someone glued together parts from 3 different centuries," she muttered. A small crowd of humans and other aliens stood at a respectful distance, admiring the vessel. Jisoo heard whispers about its supposed value and prestige. One of the Vexari, taller than the others with elaborate markings on his face, stepped forward and spoke in perfect, if formal, Korean. "Behold Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, jewel of the Vexari fleet. This vessel represents 5,000 years of superior engineering and cultural refinement." The crowd murmured appreciatively, but Jisoo couldn't help herself. She laughed. Not a small laugh, but a genuine teenage snort that echoed across the landing pad. The Vexari speaker froze mid-gesture, all 4 of his arms stiffening. His large, pupil-less eyes locked onto Jisoo. "Something amuses you, young human?" he asked, his voice suddenly cold. Mina tugged at Jisoo's sleeve, trying to pull her back, but Jisoo stepped forward instead. "Sorry, but that's not a jewel. It's a space junker," she said, pointing at the obvious flaws in the design. "Those engine ports are totally inefficient, and that hull shape, it would shake itself apart at any decent speed." A horrified silence fell over the crowd. Even the humans looked shocked. The Vexari delegation had gone completely still, their silver skin taking on a purplish tinge. The lead Vexari stepped toward Jisoo, looming over her. "You dare to insult Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk. This vessel has carried Vexari nobility for generations." Jisoo should have stopped there. Her mother always said her mouth worked faster than her brain. But instead, she shrugged and said, "I'd give you maybe 2,000 credits for it. And that's being generous." Gasps erupted from the crowd. One of the Vexari actually fell to his knees. The leader's face contorted with an emotion Jisoo couldn't read. 2,000 credits, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "Jisoo," Jun hissed from behind her. "Shut up." But Jisoo, thinking the alien was bargaining, doubled down. "Fine. 2,500, but only because the interior looks clean. My allowance doesn't stretch much further." The lead Vexari trembled visibly now. He raised all 4 arms and spoke in a voice that seemed to vibrate the air itself. "I am Captain Galsu of the 7th Vexari Fleet. You have committed the unforgivable offense. Your name, child?" Jisoo swallowed hard, finally sensing something was very wrong. "Jisoo Kim." Captain Galsu tapped a symbol on his chest, and a small device floated up, recording everything. Jisoo Kim of New Seoul has declared asterisk, the exalted dominion asterisk worth mere pocket change. This insult shall be recorded and addressed according to the ancient traditions. The Vexari do not forget. With that, the Vexari delegation boarded their ship in rigid silence. The engines, which Jisoo had correctly assessed as inefficient, whined painfully as the vessel lifted off. As the ship disappeared into the clouds, the crowd slowly dispersed, many shooting disapproving looks at Jisoo. Jisoo sat stiffly in a chair that was too big for her in the New Seoul Diplomatic Center. The room buzzed with urgent voices and hurried footsteps. Her uncle Taeho paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair so many times it now stood up in all directions. "Do you understand what's happening right now?" Taeho asked, stopping in front of her. Though only a junior diplomat, today he looked like he carried the weight of the entire human race on his shoulders. "I insulted their ship," Jisoo said quietly. "But I didn't know it was such a big deal." Taeho sighed. "To the Vexari, it's the biggest deal possible. Their ships aren't just transportation. They consider them living extensions of their honor and family history." A tall woman in a crisp blue uniform entered the room. Ambassador Lee was the highest-ranking human diplomat on New Seoul, and Jisoo had only ever seen her on news feeds. "The recording is everywhere," Ambassador Lee said grimly. "It's gone viral across all Galactic Alliance communication networks." She tapped her wrist device, projecting a hologram in the center of the room. Jisoo watched herself laugh at the Vexari ship and offer her pocket money for it. The recording had already been viewed over 3 million times. Jisoo sank deeper into her chair. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix diplomatic incidents," Ambassador Lee said, though her voice softened slightly. "The Vexari High Council has called an emergency session. They're demanding satisfaction according to their ancient customs." "What does that mean?" Jisoo asked, feeling a cold knot form in her stomach. Before anyone could answer, the communication panel on the wall chimed. A Vexari face appeared on screen. Not Captain Galsu, but an older individual with elaborate facial markings and jewelry adorning all 4 arms. "I am Elder Rin Su of the Vexari High Council," the alien announced. "I wish to speak with the human child who evaluated asterisk, the exalted dominion asterisk." Ambassador Lee motioned for Jisoo to stand before the screen. Jisoo's legs felt wobbly as she stepped forward. "I'm Jisoo Kim," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Elder Rinsu studied her with large, silver eyes. "You are young, even by human standards. Perhaps you were not taught proper respect." "I know about ships," Jisoo said. "My mother designs them. I just didn't know yours was special to you." A murmur rose from off-screen Vexari. Elder Rinsu held up one hand for silence. Asterisk, the exalted dominion asterisk has carried 17 generations of the ruling Vexari bloodline. Its design represents the pinnacle of our aesthetic philosophy. By suggesting it is worth mere pocket money, you have declared our entire civilization worthless. Jisoo's face burned. "That wasn't what I meant. Intentions matter little in matters of honor," Elder Rinsu continued. "The recording of your assessment has reached every corner of known space. Many find it amusing to see the Vexari pride challenged by a human child." Ambassador Lee stepped forward. "Elder Rinsu, we deeply apologize for this misunderstanding. Jisoo meant no disrespect. She's just a teenager with an interest in engineering." Nevertheless, Elder Rinsu continued, "Captain Galsu has invoked the right of challenge. It is our most ancient tradition when faced with grave insult." The room fell silent. Taeho looked like he might faint. "What challenge?" Jisoo asked. Elder Rinsu's expression remained unreadable. "Since you claim expertise in evaluating vessels, you must prove your assessment skills by piloting asterisk, the exalted dominion asterisk yourself through the shattered nebula." Gasps filled the room. Ambassador Lee stepped forward. That's absolutely out of the question. She's a minor. This is. The challenge has been formally issued. Elder Rinsu interrupted. If she succeeds, we will acknowledge her evaluation has merit. If she fails, the Vexari paused dramatically. If she fails, humanity must surrender the colony world of New Jeju as restitution for our damaged honor. Ambassador Lee's face paled. New Jeju has 3 million human inhabitants. Then she should not fail, Elder Rinsu said simply. As arguments erupted around her, Jisoo noticed something odd on the screen. Behind Elder Rinsu stood a younger Vexari who didn't share the outrage of the others. Instead, he was watching Jisoo with what almost looked like admiration. The young Vexari stepped forward slightly. I am Ha-won, cultural attaché to the High Council. If I may speak. Elder Rinsu seemed annoyed but nodded permission. The next morning, Jisoo sat in a large meeting room at the diplomatic center. Her parents looked worried. Her mother kept smoothing Jisoo's hair, while her father checked his data pad every few seconds. You should have called us immediately, her mother said for the 10th time. I know, Mom. I'm sorry, Jisoo replied. Ambassador Lee entered with a team of cultural experts and sinobiologists. They carried stacks of data pads and worried expressions. We've been studying Vexari customs all night, Ambassador Lee said. Their culture is built around the concept of honor and face. The ship you insulted, the Exalted Dominion isn't just a vessel. In their belief system, it contains the spiritual essence of every Vexari noble who ever traveled in it. A gray-haired professor stepped forward. When you offered pocket change for it, you essentially told them their ancestors' souls were worthless. Jisoo groaned. How was I supposed to know that? It still looks like a badly designed ship to me. The door slid open, and a Vexari entered. It was Ha-won, the young cultural attaché from the video call. In person, he was even taller than Jisoo had imagined, nearly 7 feet, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Everyone fell silent. I have been sent to explain the challenge properly, Ha-won said, his voice surprisingly gentle for such a large being, and to answer any questions the human child might have. Jisoo stood up. I'm not a child. I'm 15. Ha-won tilted his head. By Vexari standards, you would still be considered an infant. I myself am only 83, barely an adult. 83. Jisoo's eyes widened. May we speak privately? Ha-won asked, looking at Ambassador Lee. The ambassador hesitated, but nodded. You can use the small conference room. We'll monitor from here. Jisoo followed Ha-won to a smaller room with a round table and comfortable chairs. Once the door closed, the Vexari's formal posture relaxed slightly. You have caused quite a stir, Jisoo Kim, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. I didn't mean to insult your people, Jisoo said. I just said what I thought about the ship's design. Ha-won sat down, folding his forearms carefully. That is precisely what fascinates me. Vexari never speak so directly. Everything is wrapped in layers of formality and tradition. Jisoo sat across from him. So you're not mad? I did not say that, Ha-won replied. But I am curious. Your evaluation of the Exalted Dominion was technologically accurate in many ways, though culturally disastrous. Jisoo leaned forward. So you admit the ship's design is outdated? Ha-won glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers. There are factions among my people. Some of us believe we cling too tightly to tradition at the expense of progress. But such thoughts are considered borderline treasonous. That sounds exhausting, Jisoo said. Indeed. Ha-won's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Your blunt assessment has become a rallying point for both sides. The traditionalists are outraged, while the progressives secretly celebrate your honesty. Jisoo ran her fingers through her purple-tipped hair. So what happens now? I have to fly this ship through some dangerous nebula. The Shattered Nebula is a region of space filled with electromagnetic disruptions and gravitational anomalies. It is used as a final test for our most skilled pilots. HFY paused. No human has ever attempted it. Great, Jisoo muttered. And if I don't do it, we lose an entire colony. Captain Galsu made sure the stakes were appropriately high, HFY confirmed. He is not fond of humans. I noticed, Jisoo said dryly. Then a thought occurred to her. Wait, why are you being so helpful? Won't you get in trouble? HFY's expression became unreadable again. Let us say I have my reasons for wanting to see this challenge proceed. Before Jisoo could ask more questions, the door opened. Ambassador Lee entered with Jisoo's parents. Time's up, the ambassador announced. The official Vexari delegation has arrived to hear our response to the challenge. Jisoo looked at HFY, who had immediately resumed his formal posture. I'll do it, she said. Absolutely not, her father said. We're rejecting this ridiculous challenge. Jisoo stood up. If we reject it, we lose New Jeju, right? 3 million people lose their homes. The training area was a large dome at the edge of New Seoul's spaceport. Inside sat Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, gleaming under bright lights. Jisoo walked slowly around the ship, studying its curves and angles. Up close, she could see details she had missed before. Faint patterns etched into the hull that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. It's prettier than I thought, she admitted to her friend Do-Yun, who had come to help. At 16, Do-Yun was already known as a technical genius who could fix almost anything. Pretty won't help you fly through a deadly nebula, Do-Yun said, scanning the ship with a handheld device. These readings are strange. I can't figure out what powers it. Captain Galsu approached with 4 Vexari guards. Your training begins now, he announced coldly. You have exactly 48 Earth hours. Jisoo squared her shoulders. I'm ready. We shall see, Captain Galsu said. He pressed his hand against the ship's hull, and a doorway silently appeared. Enter. I will demonstrate the basics. Jisoo and Do-Yun followed him inside. The interior was nothing like Jisoo had expected. Instead of seats and control panels, the cockpit was a circular room with a cushioned floor and walls that seemed to pulse with soft light. Where are the controls? Jisoo asked, confused. Captain Galsu's face showed a hint of satisfaction. This is where your primitive understanding fails. Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, does not require crude buttons and levers. He sat cross-legged in the center of the room and closed his eyes. Immediately, the walls brightened, and Jisoo felt a slight vibration beneath her feet. The ship bonds with its pilot, Captain Galsu explained. It reads intentions and emotions, responding to the inner state of the Vexari noble at its center. You mean it's telepathic? Do-Yun asked, eyes wide. A simplistic term, but essentially correct. Captain Galsu opened his eyes, and the ship powered down. Now you try, human child. Let us witness your failure firsthand. Jisoo hesitated, then sat in the center of the room as the captain had done. She closed her eyes and waited. Nothing happened. As expected, Captain Galsu said with clear satisfaction, the ship recognizes your unworthiness. Jisoo felt her face grow hot with embarrassment. She tried again, concentrating harder. Still nothing. I told you this was impossible, her mother said from the doorway. She had been watching with Ambassador Lee and a team of human engineers. Maybe there's a genetic lock, Do-Yun suggested, something that only works with Vexari biology. While the adults discussed technical possibilities, Jisoo remained seated, eyes closed. She thought about HFY's hint. Asterisk, pay attention to your emotions, asterisk. She took a deep breath and stopped trying to make the ship work. Instead, she focused on how she felt. Nervous, yes, but also curious. She'd always loved ships, loved understanding how they moved through space. She thought about the stars, about the joy of discovery. A faint hum started beneath her. The walls flickered with light. Everyone fell silent. "Impossible," Captain Gal-Su whispered. Ji-Su opened her eyes and gasped. The walls had become transparent, showing a view of the training dome around them. But it wasn't just visual. Somehow she could feel the space around the ship, as if it were an extension of her own body. "It's responding to me," she said, amazed. "Beginner's luck." Captain Gal-Su snapped. "Feeling the ship is meaningless if you cannot control it." As if responding to his challenge, the ship rose a few inches off the ground. Ji-Su's mother rushed forward. "How are you doing that?" "I'm not sure," Ji-Su admitted. "It's like the ship understands what I want before I even know I want it." For the next several hours, Ji-Su practiced with the ship. Sometimes it responded perfectly, moving exactly as she wished. Other times, it wouldn't budge at all. The pattern made no sense until Du-Yun noticed something. "It's your emotions," he said. "When you're confident and curious, the ship responds. When you doubt yourself, it shuts down." Ji-Su realized he was right. That's what Ha-Won meant about emotions. By evening, news of Ji-Su's progress had spread. A crowd gathered outside the dome, including several Galactic Alliance officials who had arrived to witness the challenge. Among them was Ha-Won, watching silently from the back. As Ji-Su took a break, he approached her. "You have surprised Captain Gal-Su," he said quietly. "No non-Vexeri has ever bonded with one of our ships before." Ji-Su barely slept that night. Her mind raced with thoughts about the ship, the nebula, and what would happen if she failed. When morning came, she felt tired but determined. The spaceport was packed with spectators. News of the challenge had spread across the galaxy. Beings from dozens of worlds had come to watch, along with camera drones that would broadcast everything live. "No pressure," Du-Yun said, as he helped Ji-Su prepare. He handed her a small earpiece. "I modified this communicator. It should work even in the nebula's interference." Ji-Su hugged him. "Thanks. I need all the help I can get." Her parents hugged her next, trying to hide their worry. "Remember what we practiced," her mother said. "Stay calm, and the ship will respond better. And if anything seems too dangerous, just turn around," her father added. "No colony is worth your life." Ambassador Lee approached with a tall, blue-skinned alien in formal robes. "Ji-Su, this is High Observer Teklo from the Galactic Alliance. He will officially monitor the challenge." The blue alien bowed slightly. "This situation has created quite a stir in the Alliance. Many find it unusual that the Vexeri would challenge a human adolescent. They're hoping I'll fail," Ji-Su said. "Perhaps," Teklo replied. "But others are watching too. The Vexeri have long claimed technological superiority. Many species are curious to see if a human can pilot their prized vessel." This was news to Ji-Su. "You mean other aliens are rooting for me?" "The Vexeri are not universally beloved," Teklo said diplomatically. "Their cultural demands can be exhausting for other Alliance members." Before Ji-Su could respond, the crowd parted. Captain Gal-Su approached with Elder Rin-Su and a group of Vexeri officials. Their silver skin gleamed in the morning light. "The time has come," Elder Rin-Su announced. "Ju-Su Kim will pilot Asterisk, the Exalted Dominion Asterisk, through the shattered nebula. If successful, we acknowledge her evaluation has merit. If not, New Jeju becomes Vexeri territory." The terms sounded even more horrible spoken aloud. Ji-Su felt her hands shake. "Wait," a voice called from the crowd. Everyone turned. A small figure pushed through the spectators. A girl about Ji-Su's age, with bright red hair. "Kim Ji-Su, I'm Mac's son from Orion Colony," the girl called out. "My parents were diplomats before the Vexari demanded our home as payment for a cultural offense. They do this all the time. Don't let them bully you." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Captain Gal-Su looked furious. "This is irrelevant," he snapped. The challenge stands. Two more aliens stepped forward, one with green scales, another with fur-covered tentacles. The Vexari tried this tactic on Proxima IV, the scaled one said. They claim offense, then demand impossible trials. Same on Rigel's moons, the tentacled alien added. They called our traditional greeting an insult and demanded mining rights as compensation. Teklo raised his hands. These accusations are serious, but today's challenge proceeds under Alliance observation. All parties have agreed to the terms. Jisoo looked around at the growing crowd of supporters. She wasn't alone. Other species had suffered under Vexari cultural demands too. A gentle touch on her arm made her turn. Hadwan stood there, looking nervous. "May I speak with you?" he asked quietly. "One last time before you depart." Jisoo nodded, and they stepped away from the crowd. "There's something I must tell you about the ship," Hadwan whispered. "Something few Vexari know." "What is it?" The Exalted Dominion is very old, older than Vexari records claim. Hadwan glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "The interface, the emotional connection, it wasn't created by my people. We found it." Jisoo's eyes widened. "You mean it's alien technology, even to you?" Hadwan nodded. "The progressive faction has suspected this for generations, but the traditionalists suppressed the truth. The emotional interface works better with beings who express feelings freely. Like humans," Jisoo realized. The inside of the Exalted Dominion felt different now. As Jisoo sat in the center of the control room, the walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to match her heartbeat. She closed her eyes and focused on her breathing, just as she had practiced. "Connection established," she said into her communicator. "I'm ready." "We read you, Jisoo," Ambassador Lee's voice replied. "The Vexari escort ships are moving into position. They'll guide you to the edge of the nebula. Then you're on your own." Jisoo felt the ship respond to her thoughts, rising gently from the spaceport. Through the transparent walls, she could see the crowds below growing smaller. Soon, Nusul was just a patch of lights on the planet's surface. Two sleek Vexari vessels flanked her, their engines glowing purple against the blackness of space. Captain Galsu's voice came through the communicator. "Follow precisely. Any deviation will be considered a forfeit." Jisoo didn't answer. She was too busy feeling the strange connection with the ship. It wasn't like the simulator she had trained on back home. This felt alive, as if the ship itself was curious about her. They traveled in silence for nearly an hour before a massive cloud of swirling colors appeared ahead. The shattered nebula looked like a storm frozen in space, blues, purples, and reds mixing together in violent patterns. Occasional flashes of light revealed the energy discharges that made it so dangerous. "This is the entry point," Captain Galsu announced. "Your goal is the beacon on the other side, approximately 38,000 kilometers through the nebula. If you survive, you will find it." "Such encouraging words," Jisoo muttered. The Vexari escort ships peeled away, leaving Jisoo alone facing the nebula. She took a deep breath and thought about moving forward. The ship responded immediately, accelerating toward the colorful chaos ahead. As soon as she crossed the nebula's boundary, the ship's systems flickered. Static filled her communicator. "Du Yun, can you hear me?" she called. "Sue, breaking up, can't." His voice faded completely. She was on her own now. The nebula was beautiful and terrifying. Streams of gas formed shapes that reminded Jisoo of ocean waves. But unlike waves on Earth, these contained enough energy to fry the ship's systems. She guided the Exalted Dominion carefully, feeling rather than seeing the safe paths through the danger. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. The ship's lights brightened in response, as if agreeing. An hour into the nebula, Jisoo encountered the first real challenge. A massive energy storm blocked the path ahead. She could feel the ship's reluctance to proceed. "There must be another way," she said aloud. As if responding to her words, the ship sent a strange sensation to Jisoo's mind. Not quite images, but impressions. She suddenly understood that the ship had been through this nebula many times before. It knew hidden paths. "Show me," she said. The ship banked sharply downward, diving beneath the energy storm into a narrow corridor of calm space. The walls around Jisoo filled with colors she had never seen before, colors that shouldn't exist. She felt dizzy but exhilarated. "You're amazing," she told the ship. The lights pulsed happily in response. As they traveled deeper into the nebula, Jisoo began to notice patterns in the chaos. The ship wasn't just responding to her commands, it was teaching her how to navigate. When she felt afraid, the ship slowed down. When she felt confident, it moved faster and more gracefully. The ship doesn't just read emotions, she realized. It's designed to help the pilot learn. Halfway through the nebula, Jisoo noticed something odd. A section ahead seemed different from the rest, more organized, with structures that looked almost artificial. "What is this place?" she wondered. The ship slowed, approaching a formation that looked like floating crystals. As they drew closer, Jisoo gasped. The crystals were actually ancient structures, the ruins of some kind of space station or outpost. The ship's walls displayed symbols Jisoo had never seen before. They glowed with a soft light that matched the ship's interior. Recognition flowed through the connection. The ship knew this place. "This is where you're from, isn't it?" Jisoo whispered. "Your makers lived here." The crystal in her pocket, the one HFY had given her, began to glow. When she took it out, the symbols on the walls rearranged themselves. The ship was responding to the crystal. Suddenly, a massive energy surge appeared on her right. Jisoo barely had time to react as a bolt of nebula lightning struck the ship. The walls flickered, and for a moment, Jisoo lost her connection. The ship tumbled, spinning through the dangerous gases. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Jisoo fought down her panic, knowing it would only make things worse. "Stay calm," she told herself. "Focus." Jisoo pressed forward through the nebula, following a path that seemed to reveal itself just ahead of her. The ship moved with increasing confidence, as if it remembered these routes from long ago. "We're getting closer to something," Jisoo said aloud. The ship's lights pulsed in agreement. 3 hours into the journey, Jisoo's communicator crackled to life. "Sue, can you hear me?" It was Du Yun's voice, breaking through the static. "Du Yun, I'm here," Jisoo called back excitedly. "Tracking your position. You're almost, exit point. But something happening at base." "What's happening?" "I can barely hear you." The signal improved slightly. "The Vexari are fighting among themselves." HFY and several others confronted Captain Galsu. "They're saying, 'Ship isn't.'" The transmission cut off again. Jisoo tried several times to reestablish contact, but the nebula's interference was too strong. "Sounds like HFY is making his move," she told the ship. "We need to hurry." As if understanding her urgency, the ship accelerated. They passed through a particularly dense region of the nebula, where the gases formed spiral patterns like underwater whirlpools. Jisoo had to rely completely on the ship's guidance. Her own eyes couldn't tell safe passages from deadly ones. Suddenly, the ship slowed dramatically. Ahead, a massive structure loomed in the heart of the nebula, a perfect sphere made of the same crystal-like material as the ruins she passed earlier. It was enormous, easily the size of New Seoul's spaceport. The ship changed course, heading directly toward the sphere. "Wait, where are you going?" Jisoo asked, alarmed. "The exit beacon is that way." But the ship continued toward the sphere, seemingly drawn to it. As they approached, a section of the crystal surface slid open, revealing an entrance large enough for the ship to pass through. Jisoo hesitated. Going inside would mean abandoning the challenge. But the ship's eagerness was overwhelming in their mental connection. This place mattered. "Okay," she decided. "Show me." The ship entered the sphere. Inside was a vast, hollow space filled with hundreds of vessels identical to Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk. They floated in neat rows, dormant but perfectly preserved. At the center of the space hung a large crystal similar to the one Hawan had given her, but much bigger. When Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, approached the central crystal, both it and Jisu's small crystal began to glow brightly. The walls of the ship displayed complex symbols that shifted and changed rapidly. "You're downloading something," Jisu realized. "Information from the central database." For several minutes, the ship remained connected to the crystal. Then, slowly, the walls of the ship changed. The symbols were replaced by images, the history of the ship playing out like a movie. Jisoo watched in amazement as she saw the creation of these vessels by a species she had never seen before. Tall, graceful beings with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with their emotions. They looked somewhat like the Vexari, but with key differences. "The Taurians," a voice said in her mind. Not a voice exactly, but a concept, a name placed directly into her thoughts. The images continued, showing the Taurians using the ships to explore the galaxy. Unlike the Vexari, they shared their technology freely, helping younger species develop. The ships were designed as teachers, meant to form emotional bonds with pilots and help them grow. Then came disaster, a massive war with another species. The Taurians were peaceful by nature and unprepared for the conflict. The images showed their civilization falling, their numbers dwindling. In a last desperate move, they hid their remaining ships in nebulas and difficult-to-reach places across the galaxy, hoping someday worthy pilots would find them. The final images showed a small group of early Vexari discovering Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, and claiming it as their own creation. Over generations, they reverse-engineered some of the technology, but never fully understood the emotional interface. Instead, they turned it into a status symbol, a way to prove their superiority. When the images faded, Jisoo sat in stunned silence. The truth was now clear. The Vexari had built their entire cultural identity around stolen technology they didn't fully understand. "We need to show everyone," she told the ship. "Can you store this history?" The ship's lights blinked in confirmation. The walls displayed a new course, one that would take them out of the sphere, through the remainder of the nebula, and to the exit beacon in the most efficient path possible. As they left the sphere, Jisoo's communicator suddenly cleared. Jisoo guided Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, out of the shattered nebula toward the waiting ships. As she approached, she could see the situation was tense. 3 Vexari warships faced off against 2 Galactic Alliance peacekeepers. Several smaller vessels hovered nearby, including the black ship she had seen in the nebula. Her communicator lit up with incoming transmissions. "Jisoo, you made it." Her mother's voice came through first, filled with relief. "Jisoo Kim," Captain Gal-Su's voice cut in. "You have violated the terms of the challenge by deviating from the designated path. You forfeit automatically." "Actually," the calm voice of High Observer Teklo interrupted. "The terms specified only that she must navigate through the nebula to the exit beacon. They did not restrict exploration within the nebula itself." Jisoo smiled. The Galactic Alliance was on her side. As Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, approached the gathering of ships, Jisoo opened a broadcast channel to all vessels. "This is Jisoo Kim. Before anyone talks about winning or losing the challenge, there's something everyone needs to see." She focused her thoughts, asking the ship to display what it had learned. The exterior hull of Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk, began to glow, projecting enormous holograms visible to all the surrounding ships. The images showed the history of the Taurians and the true origin of the vessel. The Vexari ships went completely silent. On her private channel, Jisoo could hear gasps and exclamations from the human observers. "Is this true?" Ambassador Lee asked. "Every bit of it," Jisoo confirmed. The ship downloaded historical records from a Taurian database hidden in the nebula. There are hundreds more ships there, all waiting for pilots. One of the Vexari warships broke formation, moving closer. A new voice came over the communicator, Elder Rinsu, sounding angrier than Jisoo had ever heard. This is treasonous deception. The human child clearly fabricated these images to avoid her rightful defeat. That is incorrect, a new voice said. It came from the black ship Jisoo had seen earlier. The Taurian records are authentic. We can verify them. Who are you? Several voices asked at once. We are the Keepers, the voice replied. Descendants of those who worked alongside the Taurians, we have maintained watch over their legacy for millennia, waiting for the right time to reveal the truth. The right time being when a teenage girl insults a Vexari ship. Du Yun asked through the communicator. Sometimes the greatest catalysts come from unexpected places, the Keeper replied, with what sounded like amusement. More ships began arriving, news vessels from across the galaxy, drawn by reports of the unusual challenge. Jisoo continued broadcasting the Taurian history, ensuring that everyone witnessed the truth. A smaller Vexari vessel approached Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk. Jisoo tensed, but relaxed when she saw it was Ha-Won's ship. You've done it, Ha-Won said over a private channel. The progressive faction has taken control of the Vexari delegation. Captain Galsu and Elder Rinsu have been relieved of command pending investigation. What happens now? Jisoo asked. Now, everything changes, Ha-Won replied. For centuries, our society has been built around the myth of our technological superiority. Some will resist the truth, but many of us welcome it. We can finally move forward instead of clinging to false traditions. The Galactic Alliance ship moved closer and High Observer Teklo spoke. Jisoo Kim, you have not only completed the challenge successfully, but have made a discovery of galactic importance. The Alliance formally recognizes your accomplishment and declares the terms of the challenge fulfilled in your favor. Cheers erupted from the human ships. Jisoo's parents were crying with relief and pride. Ambassador Lee looked stunned but pleased. In addition, Teklo continued, the Alliance will establish a commission to study the Taurian technology and ensure it is shared appropriately among all member species. We invite representatives from Earth, including Jisoo Kim, to participate. Jisoo could hardly believe what was happening. What had started as a casual comment about a ship's design had led to a discovery that would change galactic history. As the ships prepared to return to New Seoul, Ha-Won requested permission to board Asterisk, the exalted Dominion Asterisk. Jisoo agreed, curious to meet the Vexari who had helped her. When Ha-Won entered the ship, he moved differently than the other Vexari Jisoo had seen, more relaxed, less formal. He studied the ship's interior with open wonder. Our leaders taught us that the emotional interface was a sign of Vexari superiority, he said. They claimed only our disciplined minds could master it, but you connected with it immediately. 6 months had passed since Jisoo's journey through the shattered nebula. New Seoul had become the center of a galactic renaissance as scientists, diplomats, and historians from dozens of worlds gathered to study the Taurian technology and records. Jisoo stood in the observation deck of the New Seoul spaceport, watching ships come and go. She wore a simple blue uniform with a small silver pin, the newly created symbol for the Taurian Recovery Project. At 16, she was the youngest member of the project team, but everyone recognized her unique connection to the ships. There you are, said Du Yun, joining her at the window. The ceremony starts in 20 minutes. Jisoo nodded. I'm just nervous. There will be so many important people there. You face down the entire Vexari High Council. This should be easy, Du Yun said with a grin. Together, they walked through the spaceport, which had been transformed for today's event. Flags and banners from all Galactic Alliance species hung from the ceiling. Crowds of humans and aliens filled the main hall, talking excitedly. At the center of the hall sat a ship similar to Asterisk, the Exalted Dominion asterisk, but with key differences. Its hull was sleeker, free of unnecessary decorations. It combined Taurian design with modern engineering, the first collaboration of its kind. As Jisoo approached, she saw Ha-1 waiting beside the ship. He had changed too. He now went by the name Jin-ho, adopting a human name as a symbol of cultural exchange. Many younger Vexari had followed his example, forming new bonds with the species they once looked down upon. "You look well," Jin-ho said, bowing slightly. "The project suits you." "Better than school," Jisoo admitted. "My teachers let me study remotely now. They call it practical experience in interstellar diplomacy." Jin-ho smiled. Something Vexari rarely did in public before. "The old ways are changing. Many of our young people now express emotions openly. Some elders are horrified, but most see the benefits." The lights dimmed, signaling the start of the ceremony. Ambassador Lee stepped onto the stage, followed by representatives from 20 different worlds, including High Observer Teklo and a delegate from the Keepers. 6 months ago, Ambassador Lee began. A chance encounter between a human teenager and a Vexari ship led to one of the most significant discoveries in recent galactic history. Today, we celebrate not just what was found, but what has been created since. The crowd applauded. Jisoo felt her face grow warm as several people turned to look at her. "The Taurians left us a legacy of cooperation and shared knowledge," Ambassador Lee continued. "In their spirit, I am proud to present the first vessel of the new Joint Species Fleet, designed by both human and Vexari engineers, with guidance from the Keepers and input from across the Alliance." The ship's exterior began to glow softly, showing it was powered up and ready. "And now," Ambassador Lee said, "we have asked Jisoo Kim to name this first vessel, as she was the catalyst for this new era of cooperation." Jisoo walked slowly to the stage, feeling the weight of everyone's attention. She had thought carefully about the name for weeks. "The Taurians built their ships to be teachers," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "They believed in learning from each other, in honest exchange. So I named this ship *Honest Appraisal*. For a moment, there was silence. Then Jin-ho began to laugh. A genuine, joyful sound. Other Vexari joined in, followed by humans, and then the entire crowd. "A perfect choice," Jin-ho said, stepping forward. "It honors both where we began and where we are going." The name was projected onto the ship's hull, first in human letters, then in Vexari script, and finally in the ancient Taurian symbols. After the ceremony, Jisoo found a quiet moment alone with the Exalted Dominion which was now housed in a special hangar for research. The ship's lights brightened as she approached. "We've come a long way together," she told it, placing her hand on the cool metal of its hull. Through their connection, Jisoo felt the ship's contentment. It had fulfilled its purpose, bringing different species together, just as its creators had intended. Ambassador Lee found her there a few minutes later. "There you are. The Galactic Council has approved your proposal for a student exchange program. 10 young humans will train alongside Vexari apprentices and representatives from other species." "That's great news," Jisoo said. They also asked if you would consider continuing as a cultural liaison. Ambassador Lee added, "Your direct approach seems to work well in diplomatic situations."